In the third year of dating Eric, he started thinking about breaking up. After a few drinks, he vented to his friends, "Emily's like a bowl of plain porridge. I'm really sick of it, but I don't want to be the bad guy. I need a good reason to dump her." Someone suggested, "Simon just got back. There's no woman he can't get. Besides, Emily's exactly his type." But Eric shook his head firmly. "Emily's so sweet. She'd never go for a guy like him." Later, he watched me let Simon kiss me, feeling as if something was stuck in his throat, almost dying of jealousy. And then, he begged to get back together. "Emily, can you really let go of our 3 years together?" That night, Simon cornered me by the big window. "Emily, so what if it's 3 years? Can he be like me?" In the third year with Eric, I was, like any girl in a serious relationship, starting to think about a stable marriage. On our 3-year anniversary, I had prepared a set of rings, but I never got the chance to bring them out. During the party, I stepped out to take a call. I accidentally overheard his conversation. "Emily is great, she's sweet, but I just don't want her anymore. She's like a bowl of plain porridge, you know, comforting, but tasteless. I've had it for 3 years. I'm really tired of it. Recently, I met this girl. She's wild, bold, and has a great body. I'm seriously into her. Are you serious? Are you really thinking of breaking up?" Eric bit his cigarette and laughed. "Seriously, my mind's full of that temptress." He sighed, frustrated and helpless. "But I can't find anything wrong with Emily. I don't want to be the bad guy, but I need a good reason to dump her." I stood behind some tall plants, watching the man I had loved for 3 years. His brows were furrowed, eyes filled with trouble. 3 years ago, he had tried so hard to win me over. 3 years later, he was trying so hard to find a way to dump me without feeling guilty. Eric's face became blurry in my vision. Dewdrops fell from the large leaves. I touched my face and realized I was crying. As I turned to leave, I suddenly heard one of his friends speak up. "I've got an idea. Simon just got back to the country. He's always been a player. There's no woman he can't get." Eric's face darkened. "What do you mean? If Simon can get her, you'll have a good reason to break up. Simon's always had high standards. Why would he go for her?" Eric's voice was a bit cold. "I heard he has a thing for this type. He's dated over a dozen girls over the years, and they're all this kind of pure-looking girl. And Emily's face is exactly his type." But Eric shook his head firmly. "Emily's so sweet and proper. She wouldn't like someone like him. So, even if Simon goes for her, it wouldn't work." His friend laughed. "What if it does? You'd be free from this hassle, right? Plus, if he messes with your girl, he owes you. That's a win-win." Eric lowered his gaze slowly and said nothing. "He's eating here tonight too. Why not give it a try?" I stared at Eric's face, and after what felt like 10 seconds, he nodded slightly. In that moment, the last bit of attachment I had for him faded away. At the end of the party, Eric said he had too much to drink and asked me to walk with him in the garden. I didn't refuse. While we were outside, he spilled a drink on my dress and took me to the lounge to change into a new one. A white dress, very innocent looking. "You look better with your hair down." He suddenly reached up to remove my hair clip. My long hair fell down like satin. His eyes softened for a moment, but he still said, "Let's go." The garden was large, with the occasional sound of insects in the spring night, adding to the tranquility. "Emily, wait here a moment. I need to make a call." I nodded, still not refusing. Eric walked away with his phone, but didn't come back for a long time. A drunken man came over smoking and tried to flirt with me. I couldn't avoid him, and my dress collar was nearly pulled open. I screamed in panic. Suddenly, footsteps came from behind the trees. A few tall bodyguards in black kicked the drunk man to the ground in no time. Then I saw the legendary Simon. He stood in the gentle night, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. The landscape lights weren't very bright, casting his face in shadows. I could only make out his tall, lean silhouette. Awkwardly clutching my collar, my long hair hung messily down my chest. The spring night wind was warm, brushing my skirt against my legs, bringing an unbearable itch. I bent down to brush it away. Unable to stand on my broken heel, I nearly fell over. A strong hand suddenly steadied me. Then, a jacket with a faint smell of smoke and cologne draped over my shoulder, covering my exposed shoulder. On the west side of the garden, a pavilion stood on slightly higher ground. Eric and his friends were standing under the pavilion, able to see everything in the garden. He saw Simon's bodyguards helping Emily, saw Simon catching Emily just in time, and draping his jacket over her. Everything was just as his friend had said. From the moment Simon saw Emily, his eyes hadn't left her face. At first, Eric was happy, but as Emily continued to not avoid Simon, he felt more and more irritated. Emily was usually very timid and obedient. Eric, though bored of her calmness, secretly hoped she would remain loyal only to him. The night deepened. He watched as Simon's assistant brought her new shoes, and watched them talking about who knows what. Emily would occasionally give a slight smile. Her dimples would show just enough, looking sweet and innocent. He didn't realize when he took out the cigarette, just watched her a bit dazed. By the time Emily obediently followed Simon away, he suddenly lost his composure, clenching the lit cigarette. His palm burned painfully. Eric quickly let go and dropped the butt. When he looked up again, the yard was empty with no one around. It was only after getting into Simon's car that I noticed something was off with my body. It must have been the last glass of juice Eric gave me. Something was in it. I knew he was low, but didn't know he could stoop so low. We've been together for 3 years, met each other's parents. Everyone thought we were about to get married, but now, he's personally handed me over to another man, just so he can walk away without any burden. The drug was hitting me harder. As the car jerked, my leg brushed against Simon's knee. My body was burning, weak enough to almost collapse. He looked up at me. Emily, what's wrong? I was losing my senses. Didn't even hear him call my full name. My throat was dry, my voice came out hoarse, but longing. Mr. Simon. I wanted to ask him to take me to the hospital, but when his hand gripped my forearm, that thread of reason I was barely holding on to, snapped. Why are you so hot? Simon slightly furrowed his brows, his hand pressing to my forehead. His temperature was slightly cooler than mine. Once he touched me, I sighed in relief. The smell of smoke faded, replaced by the scent of sandalwood. I grabbed his fingers, pressing them against my burning cheek. Feels so good. Simon instructed the driver to turn the car around and lowered the partition. The back seat was spacious yet private. He finally dropped the act. Pulling out his hand, he gripped my waist. My body lifted slightly, then quickly dropped. My white dress scattered around his waist, like a half-bloomed flower. Simon lifted his hand, his fingers brushed over my swollen lips. His eyes held a teasing desire. Emily. I looked at him, confused but unable to control myself, bit his long fingers. The cool touch momentarily eased the heat inside. You want to feel better. His other hand moved to my lower back, pressed tightly. As he finished speaking, his hand applied a little pressure. I leaned forward, collapsing into his embrace. Want to feel better? I nodded, lost in desire. Simon's hand firmly gripped the back of my head. He lowered his head, prying open my lips, and kissed deeply. It felt like a hidden switch in my body was flipped on. My fingers clenched Simon's sleeve, so tight my fingertips went white, but I couldn't stop. A low moan escaped. Feels that good? He chuckled, lightly biting my lower lip. The hand on my lower back pressed me closer to his toned waist. Simon kissed me again, silencing my moans. Or I'll lose control. Just as he said that, my phone suddenly rang. Simon calmly took the phone from my bag. Eric's name flashed repeatedly on the screen. A smirk tugged at his lips, his eyes restrained yet wild. Emily, it's your boyfriend calling. Want to pick up? The incessant ringing seemed to pull my reason back a bit. I shook my head hard, tears welling up. No, Simon, no. Not picking up is fine. He put the phone down, leaned back in the seat. Emily, come kiss me. Open your mouth. Don't bite. He winced in pain, fingers undoing the strap of my dress. In the dim, shifting light, only that snowy white flash appeared sporadically. His Adam's apple bobbed. His voice was hoarse. Emily, you've grown up. I didn't quite get what Simon meant. I'm 24, already grown up. The car stopped, but at the main house of Simon's villa. The driver had sensibly kept his distance. Simon wrapped me in his jacket, carrying me out. The heat was unbearable. I tugged at the jacket wanting to throw it off, but he held down my restless hands. Hold on, we're not inside yet. I shook my head wildly, my scorching fingers unbuttoning his shirt, touching his narrow waist and defined abs. My hot palm pressed against his cool muscles, then my burning cheek followed. Even my breath was hot, spilling over his chest. Simon's steps faltered for a beat. He looked down at me, a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Moments later, he pinned down my wandering hands, quickening his steps. Emily, you brought this on yourself. Don't cry when you wake up. Don't blame me. The phone left in the car started ringing insistently again, but no one paid it any mind. Eric's face was dark with anger. He couldn't remember how many times he'd called Emily, how many texts he sent, but they all vanished into thin air. The night was deep, but he couldn't sleep. Everything had gone perfectly. Maybe tomorrow, he could guiltlessly dump Emily. But what he couldn't shake from his mind was Emily's smile at Simon. He felt an odd twinge of regret. Maybe he shouldn't have listened to his friend's idea of spiking that juice. Even if Emily was just a bland bowl of porridge, he was beyond sick of her. but he still couldn't accept that bowl of porridge suddenly being held by another man. Maybe it was just silly possessiveness. Maybe it was because they had genuinely loved each other once. So now he felt a bit bitter. The phone suddenly rang. Eric grabbed it reflexively, but it wasn't Emily. "How's it going? Did it work? Happy now?" His friend's voice sounded smug, but Eric found it grating. "I even took photos at the garden, and of Emily getting in Simon's car. Super clear. Tomorrow, take these photos to break up with her. She won't have anything to say." Eric abruptly interrupted. "Is Emily with Simon now?" No, I checked just now." A friend laughed and said, "Simon may be a charmer, but is still decent. When he knew Emily was your girlfriend, he took her home." Eric hung up the phone and grabbed his car keys, ready to head out. But suddenly, the door was pushed open, revealing a strikingly beautiful face. "Eric, I've been waiting for you for half the day." A girl's voice, sweet and seductive, contrasted sharply with Emily's. His heart was stirred. He reminded himself that Emily was already home. There was nothing to worry about. He had been thinking of breaking up with her anyway. Checking on her now could lead to unnecessary complications if he got soft-hearted. At this point, Eric bit his lip. The young and hot girl in front of him threw herself into his arms, hugging him tightly. "Eric, why aren't you saying anything?" He looked down at the daring young girl, and the thoughts of the simple Emily quickly faded. He gripped her chin and kissed her. "Wanna come to my place tonight? Aren't you afraid your girlfriend will find out?" she teased. Eric chuckled. "What girlfriend? You're my girlfriend." "Oh, stop it. I haven't agreed to that," she said playfully. "Whether you agree or not, it doesn't matter," he replied, lifting her up and tossing her onto the couch. She screamed and wrapped her arms around his neck. Eric knelt beside her, unbuckled his belt. As he leaned forward, the face of the girl suddenly changed into Emily's in his mind. He paused, frowned, then turned the girl over so she faced away. He leaned in again. "When Simon carried me to the bathtub, my dress was already a mess. As I submerged in the water, I had a few seconds of clarity, but soon the warm water sliding over my hot skin added to the heat. My back pressed firmly against Simon's solid body as he kissed my face softly. A phone on the shelf was recording, but I was oblivious. There wasn't much touching, and even the kisses were restrained, making me yearn for more. I couldn't help but raise my arm and wrap it around his neck, wanting deeper kisses. But Simon stopped, pulling away and holding my wrist. I looked at him, confused and frustrated. "Simon," leaning back with a mischievous grin, Simon asked, "Emily, you have to be clear about what you want." The water rippled gently. My soaked dress clung to my delicate figure. He looked strong and tempting. I reached out to touch him, but he held my hand back. "Emily, it's late," he said, making a move to get up. Unable to stand it any longer, I threw my arms around him. "Simon, I want you." "What do you want from me?" Simon asked, lightly lifting my chin. "Who am I?" "You're Simon." "Good, now say what you want again." Desperately, I kissed his jawline. "I want Simon. I want him to kiss me like in the car." Finally, he kissed me passionately. Clothes were torn away, and I was lifted out of the tub to the bathroom's large vanity. Looking in the spotless mirror, I saw my face, flushed and needy. Simon kissed my neck and whispered, "Emily, why are you so skinny? Haven't you been eating well?" "Simon," I glared at him through the mirror, exasperated. "You talk too much." Waking up the next day, my body felt like it had been hit by a truck. Every inch hurt. The blackout curtains let no light through, leaving me disoriented. Sitting up stiffly, realizing I was naked, memories of last night flooded back. Shock settled in as I pieced it together. So, I slept with Simon last night. The room was empty, seemingly Simon's bedroom. Not knowing how to deal with the situation, I wanted to leave quickly. After a hurried shower, I dressed in my now clean clothes, grabbed my phone and bag, and left the room. Downstairs, I didn't see Simon. A servant in the living room greeted me with a smile. "Emily, you're awake. Breakfast is prepared." "No, thanks." I hurried towards the door, but the servant followed. "Emily, are you looking for Simon? He's out running. Should be back soon." "No, I'm not looking for him. I need to go home." I felt embarrassed and avoided eye contact. "You can go back to your work. I'm heading out." "Emily, Simon asked us to inform him when you woke up." "No need. I have something at home," I said, stopping her. "No need to bother him. Should we get a driver for you?" she asked. "No, I'm calling a car." I didn't want to run into Simon and rushed outside, but before reaching the gate, Simon returned from his run. He wore workout clothes. His muscles looked particularly attractive. I glanced at him and quickly looked away. His forearms bore fresh scratches, likely from me last night. "Where are you going?" Simon asked, taking a towel from the servant. Wiping sweat, he asked. "Home." "Wait a bit. I'll take a quick shower and give you a ride." "No need. I called a car." it'll be here soon. This is a private residence. Outside cars can't get in. You'll have to walk at least a kilometer. Sure you have the strength. Simon raised an eyebrow, glancing at me with a cheeky smile. I bit my lip, clutching my dress. My legs were weak, my body still aching. My lower belly was uncomfortable. I was still wearing the high heels he had someone bring over last night to match my dress. I knew walking a kilometer would be tough. I'll take you. Simon walked over, tucking my hair behind my ear. Eat something first. Your stomach will feel bad if you don't. I couldn't help but glance at him, a bit surprised. Simon didn't say anything more, just took my hand and walked me back. I ate in the dining room, while Simon went upstairs to shower. To my surprise, his taste in food was almost identical to mine. Everything prepared was what I liked. Before I knew it, the plate in front of me was clean. Simon came down after his shower, dressed in simple casual shirts and slacks, but still looking dashing. He looked at my empty plate, a faint smile in his eyes. Full. I felt a bit embarrassed. The food auntie in the kitchen made was delicious. Simon seemed in a great mood. With a wave, he doubled the salary of every kitchen staff. Everyone was overjoyed. A rich kid being rich indeed, throwing money around effortlessly. When we reached my building, Simon had the driver step out first. I stared at him, confused. Something to tell you. What is it? I felt a bit anxious. Simon and Eric were completely different. Though the Song family was wealthy, they were not in Simon's league. Even though Simon had been abroad in recent years, his name often came up. His background was astounding. His private life was colorful and wild. Rumors were exaggerated, but there's usually some truth. They said his years abroad were quite chaotic, even involving a fatal incident. Yet with his family's background, handling it was a piece of cake. Getting involved with someone like him was frightening. Though he had been nothing but gentlemanly and kind since last night. He didn't answer, just took out his phone and played a recording. I blushed instantly, covering my ears. He quickly turned it off, but I was mortified. All I could think about was that one thing I had said. I want you, Simon, kiss me like in the car. I never knew my voice could sound so soft. Mr. Simon, can you delete that recording? I looked at him cautiously. Simon smirked. Of course, Emily, the purpose of the recording isn't to blackmail you. Then why? I was afraid you'd deny it. Think I deliberately took advantage of you. Deny it? Of course. You used me as your antidote all night. Can't be for nothing. Sorry, I was on the verge of tears. No need to apologize. Just take responsibility. Responsibility. Yes, be responsible. But what? I was completely puzzled. How? Marriage. Simon. I blurted his name in shock. Simon leaned back in his seat, smiling. His smile was charming yet alarmingly dangerous. A man like this was completely out of my league, especially with my temperament. Why, if I'm ruined, aren't you going to take responsibility? I widened my eyes in disbelief. But Simon seemed more serious. Think about it. Mr. Simon, does it have to be this way? I bit my lip hard. You enjoyed last night too. Let's call it even. Even. Simon's smile deepened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Emily, can it ever be even? I looked down, feeling humiliated and scared. Tears started flowing. He was right. How could it be even? He was a virgin. I wasn't. Why are you crying? Simon roughly grabbed my chin, wiping my tears. If you truly don't want to, I won't force you. I'm sorry. I genuinely felt guilty. Eric set him up, and last night, I'd been driven by anger and revenge, using him. I hadn't anticipated the situation would end up like this with the spiked juice. Emily, let's compromise. How? If you don't want to get married, be my girlfriend. Simon wiped my tears again. You cry so much. No wonder last night. I covered his mouth. Simon, don't say it. Why shy? Wasn't it you begging me not to leave? Simon, I lunged to cover his mouth again, but Simon grabbed my wrist, leaned down, and kissed me. This works better. I almost fell getting out of the car, my legs weak. Simon caught me just in time. I was still blushing when I got home. Things had gone completely off track. In just 2 days, my life had flipped upside down. When Eric called, I didn't want to pick up, but I knew clearly. Our 3-year relationship ended last night. He sent a few photos, me talking to Simon in the garden, and me leaving with him. Emily, don't you owe me an explanation. I found it amusing. If I hadn't overheard them last night, maybe I would have felt ashamed. Sometimes, I really don't understand why men can't just break up straightforwardly. Where do they get their confidence? Women just can't seem to let them go. I might be sad, but it's just because a 3-year relationship ended without a real conclusion. I took our relationship seriously, but the results weren't great. Throughout all this, I have no regrets. Eric, let's break up. I'll handle things with my parents. You do the same with yours. Let's not contact each other anymore. I sent the message and didn't wait for his reply. I deleted and blocked all his contact info immediately. I tried searching for Simon online. I even talked about it with my best friend, Anna. She had heard some rumors about Simon too, and was really worried for me. Emily, I have a friend studying abroad, and they said he was involved in a fatal incident. His family has been worried about his marriage for years. He's had too many flings, and those wealthy girls he matches with won't marry him and endure hardships. I'm a bit worried, afraid he'd mistreat you, afraid you'd suffer. Mistreat me, make me suffer. I felt a bit disoriented. After spending over a month with Simon, he didn't seem as bad as the rumors. Well, maybe a bit. Actually, 2 bits. He always teases me and never seems satisfied in bed. Anna and I have known each other since kindergarten. Our bond is incredibly strong, closer than sisters. To not worry her, I quietly told her all this, but as soon as I finished, Anna lost it. Emily, how could you hide finding such an amazing guy from me? The guy I broke up with 3 months ago was only this big. Do you know that? Anna cried, holding up her MAC lipstick. You dislike that your sizes don't match. I'm serious. Anna wouldn't listen. My ex was tall too. Big tree. Tiny chili pepper. Unfair, unfair. I could only comfort her. Too big isn't good either. It really hurts. I'd take the pain. Anna glared at me. You're killing me, Emily. I'm so jealous. She made me laugh and cry at the same time. It felt like the last shadows in my heart vanished during our banter. That evening, Simon came to pick me up for dinner. I thought it was just a regular date. I didn't expect we'd meet his best friends. I was confused. They say Simon's relationships are always short. Why would ours be any different? So what's the point of meeting his friends? We got out of the car and had to walk through a small garden to reach the restaurant. I didn't say much, feeling confused, not happy. Simon suddenly stopped. Don't want to meet them, right? I shook my head, but then nodded. I don't know them, and you guys talk about politics and finance, which I don't get. Simon played with hedge funds abroad and made his first fortune. His Twitter is mostly filled with finance elites, and I'm just a regular college grad. My monthly salary barely covers a meal with them. It's just dinner, we can leave after, Simon said, suddenly grabbing my wrist and pulling me close. Emily, he looked down at me. Kiss me. We haven't seen each other all day. Kiss me. Simon's fingers held my chin, his voice low and gentle. I instinctively looked around. It was dark, and no one was around. So I stood on my toes and lightly kissed him. But as I pulled away, Simon unexpectedly took control. His hand gripped the back of my head, making the kiss deeper. Not until I was almost out of breath did he let go. His flirtatious eyes were now filled with tenderness. He wiped a bit of moisture from my lips and held my hand again. Let's go in. Turning around, he glanced somewhere briefly, a slight smile on his lips. Who's really playing who here? If he weren't willing, how could Eric's plan go so smoothly? The early summer breeze felt warm, but standing under the tree, Eric felt a chill all over. His friend said Simon likes girls like Emily, so if he met someone like her, he wouldn't let go. But deep down, Eric was sure Emily wouldn't go for a playboy like Simon. Never thought Emily would obediently tilt her head to kiss another man. She kissed him the same way before. At first, he loved her shy and sweet nature, but later, he got tired. He was enchanted by bold, daring girls. He forgot how she initially moved his heart. Eric couldn't describe his current feelings. It felt like choking, on the verge of madness. He never knew he could be so jealous. So jealous he almost bled from it. But he didn't even have the right to confront her. He brought this on himself. He sent Emily into Simon's arms. He could blame no one else. The dinner wasn't as dull as I expected. Maybe because Simon was considerate of my feelings. The topics were light and fun. When going to the restroom, one of Simon's friend's fiancé joined me. While washing hands and reapplying makeup, she smiled at me. When's your wedding? I was stunned. We aren't planning on getting married. Really? That's not possible. Simon told us himself. What did he say? He said he's getting married this year. I laughed. Might be to someone else. What nonsense. You're his girlfriend. Of course you will get married. But doesn't he break up with every girlfriend in less than a month? She looked at me like I was from another planet. Where did you hear that? Simon only dated a girl in middle school and didn't even hold hands. I clenched my lipstick tightly. Didn't he date a lot while studying abroad? He had many admirers, but he rejected them all. He can be downright ruthless to girls he doesn't like. So his reputation isn't great. I instinctively bit my lip and asked the one question that was bugging me the most. So he caused a death abroad. Apparently, a girl committed suicide over him and couldn't be saved. but I think he's innocent. He just rejected someone he didn't like. Why didn't he clear things up then? His company has tons of media and entertainment outlets. It wouldn't be hard to set the record straight. No idea, we're puzzled too, but he doesn't want to explain. So the rumors keep getting crazier. She smiled helplessly. Honestly, his personal life is pretty boring. He's a dull guy. Doesn't get into the stuff we do. Isn't it boring being with him? Not really. On top of that, he doesn't seem like a boring person. He's pretty good at teasing people. But after making someone mad, he's great at coaxing them. Thinking of how he sweet-talked me yesterday, my face suddenly flushed again. Simon really seems nothing like the rumors. And it seems like I never disliked him from the start. 2 months after we broke up, Eric suddenly went to my parents' place. I was really surprised when I got the call to come home. He came to talk to my parents about marriage. I was so mad, I laughed. I threw all the expensive gifts he brought out the door. Eric, you went to all that trouble to break up, and now you pull this. I've always been pretty mild-tempered. This was the first time I lost it like that. Even my parents were shocked. Emily, what's going on? Let's talk this out calmly. I asked my parents to go to their room, calmed down, and started talking. Eric, stop messing up my life. I heard everything you said that night. Eric panicked immediately. Emily, I admit I was out of my mind then, but I regret it now. I truly regret it. I chuckled softly. When you put something in my juice, you should have thought of the consequences. But didn't he bring you home that night? No, that night I was at Simon's place. We spent the whole night together. Everything happened. Eric couldn't believe it, shaking his head repeatedly. No, I don't believe it. Impossible. Not the outcome you wanted. Congratulations, Eric. You got what you wanted. Eric's eyes were terrifyingly red as he took a step forward and grabbed my arm tightly. Emily, our 3 years together were different. The moment the words left your mouth, I had already let go. I pushed him away, my voice calm and cold. Impossible. We were together for 3 years. You couldn't have let go that easily. Please leave my home. If you come again, I'll call the police immediately. Emily. Eric tried to say something else, but I pushed him out the door and locked it. After comforting my parents and getting ready to leave, I saw Simon was already downstairs. He seemed to notice I was upset, so he took me to a quiet bar. After drinking until I was half drunk, Simon took me home. On the way back, he lowered the screen and gently asked, "What did Eric want at your place today?" I snuggled into his arms, answering groggily, "He came to propose." Propose? I kicked him out. He kept talking about our 3 years together, how I couldn't let go. Simon didn't say a word, just gently touched my face. He didn't want to admit it, but he was truly jealous. Jealous of Emily and Eric's 3 years together. Those 3 years, they were truly in love, so no one could come between them. But now, all he felt was relief. Emily. Simon carried me to the bedroom, pressing me against the floor-to-ceiling window. This time, he was rough, unlike the previous gentle times. His hot hand fell on my lower abdomen. Simon kissed my earlobe. Emily, what do your 3 years with him matter? Has he ever done this? I shook my head, my sobs broken. I started crying, my fingers digging into the firm muscles of his forearm. Simon, I'm scared. I was really scared, never like this before. I felt like I was about to die. He lowered his head to suck on my tears. Emily, marry me. Why? Because I like you. Like me? Yeah, I've liked you for a long time. Simon smiled charmingly as always, but back then, you were someone else's girlfriend. Can you leave first? Promise me, and I'll leave. Leave first, and I'll promise. Emily. Simon seemed amused. He lowered his head and bit me lightly. If you don't promise, I'll stay inside forever. But your family? His family wasn't like ours. They wouldn't allow his marriage easily. They've already agreed. What? Do you think those rumors of me playing around and causing a death spread on their own? Simon smiled. He always worked like this, achieving his goals without caring about the means. He was smitten with Emily at first sight. When he found out she had a boyfriend, he thought about giving up, but he couldn't stop spying on her, and the more he did, the harder it was to let go. Some feelings just don't need a reason. It's just the right person. Everything about that person fits your taste. Even if Eric hadn't thought about breaking up, he would have found another chance to steal her away. As for Simon's family, he had been planning for this day for a long time. Knowing that family background was an unavoidable barrier, he had to eliminate these worries, so he wanted to marry a girl from an ordinary family. To his elders, this was better than him playing around, causing a death, refusing to marry, and ruining his reputation. Emily, I've only ever dated you. You have to take responsibility for me. Simon lifted me up. You're the best, kindest girl. You won't be a heartbreaker, right? I was suddenly amused by the word heartbreaker, and before I knew it, I nodded. Simon carried me back to the bed, kissed the dimple on my cheek. Since you agreed, I'll leave. But as I lifted my hand, I held him tightly. Simon, just go a little slower. I pressed my cheek to his chest, listening to his heartbeat, remembering the night we first met in the garden. He draped his jacket over me. Who could have thought we'd end up here today? Emily, close your eyes. I obediently closed my eyes. My finger suddenly felt weight. It was a cool ring slipping on. I opened my eyes to see a stunning diamond on my finger, sparkling in the night. Do you like it? I smiled gently, looking at the blooming flowers on the terrace. Summer had arrived. The flowers that belonged to me were blossoming.